Midnight Saturday on Night Owls, we do a grisly tale, and tonight's grisly tale tells us all about the town moor. Now each year they gather to do the Great North Run along that road, near Newcastle's Witch House, the old windmill on Claremont Road, and the vast expanse of the town moor. Few people standing there knowing that one of Newcastle's main gallows stood very near to where the run information desk stands for the event, just onto the lip of grass, now long grown over. So just who lost their lives there? Well, in 1642, soldiers were shot by firing squad for denying the king's pay. Essentially, they wanted to quit, but they weren't allowed to. In 1739, a 53-year-old William Smith was hanged for murdering his wife with a sharp skillet. On the gallows, he actually began to confess, but his words dried up, and as the priest put the rope around his neck, he asked that his clothes, his only possessions, be given to his son, who then watched him hang. 5 minutes after his death, they made the son strip him naked, and he'd excreted and urinated in his trousers. Something special to remember your dad by. Richard Brown was a 58-year-old Kiel man. He was dragged to the town moor to hang after throwing his mouthy 17-year-old daughter downstairs, breaking her neck. Brown couldn't deny doing it, but had no memory of it, being totally drunk. And on the gallows, he began talking to his friends and very nearly caused a riot in an attempt to escape. Finally, he said, "No, I better let them do this. After all, it's for me bairn." In 1752, there was a battle down Newcastle's big market, as there almost certainly will be tonight. Ewan MacDonald was lodging there. He was a new 19-year-old recruit in the Highlanders Regiment, and a local gang began calling him names, insulting soldiers in general. And when some of them left, he thought the odds were a little better, so MacDonald stabbed one of them in the back of the neck, killing him. Before charging into the others, he broke 2 noses and another's arm when other soldiers, ironically, arrested him. The man he stabbed was the wrong man. The man he really wanted was sitting beside him. And so after long protestations, he was carried in a cart to the town moor, and the violence that got him into trouble continued even up there on the gallows. With the rope around his neck, he then tried to throw the executioner off his ladders, and it was said that he dangled there for almost 25 minutes screaming obscenities before he died in extreme agony. And once they determined he was finally dead, he was carried off to the surgeon's hall near Newcastle University to be dissected. On the table, young MacDonald started reviving, panting for his life. The young surgeon certainly didn't want to lose a rare, recently dead body to practice on, so hit him hard on the skull with a heavy mallet, killing him. Later that day, the young surgeon was dead, found with his head shattered into pieces and his brain running across the tiled floor. Some said he'd been kicked by a horse, others that he slipped, cracking his head open. Yet the story that perpetuates is that MacDonald's ghost returned to murder the man that had spoiled his survival plan. Now this was the first of a number killed on the moor who would seek to return to walk among us. In 1754, Dorothy Catenby, who lived on the quayside near Love Lane, a place where prostitutes romanced sailors up against a wall. An illegitimate child, most believe, was created by such a liaison, was strangled and thrown into the River Tyne. Dorothy was seen throwing the child into the river and was sentenced to death. On watching her swing, her 2 sons collected rocks, put them in their jacket and trouser pockets, and near where the swing bridge now stands, they hurled themselves into the River Tyne to drown. Daughter moved away to Appledore Gardens in Chesterley Street, and there 3 weeks later she climbed into a bath of warm water and slit her wrists. Her ghost is said to be still there because of what happened after her body was found. A neighbour called Coyle discovered the body, and on finding this pretty young, naked woman dead, he knew he couldn't revive her, so instead he pulled her out of that tin bath and had sex with the bleeding corpse. He was never arrested for it, as they could not prove it was Coyle, despite him claiming to have found the body. And now, major poltergeist activity has been established for well over 200 years there in Chesterley Street. In 1758, Alice Williamson, a well-known thief who had been stealing in the town for over 60 years, was hanged for theft of a stotty. Later the same year, William Bland was shot on the town moor by firing squad for desertion. In fact, he met a young lady the night before and had his way with her, and so smitten was he that he forgot where he was supposed to muster, and the troop had to track him down. In 1776, a postman, Robert Knowles, stole one single letter that had two £50 notes in it. Knowles was arrested, and a lot of people felt sorry that he'd been sentenced to death for stealing one letter. However, in the cell, he took all of his clothes off and he stacked them in a corner to make it look as if he were lying there dead. And when the guard checked on him, he saw the still figure and raced in. Now, this allowed Knowles to slip out stark naked, locking the guard in his cell and getting away. He was later recaptured after pitmen from Walker Colliery spotted him. And at his execution, land gave away over old pit workings and 15 people were injured. In 1783, a forger, William Alexander, was hanged and later buried in St Andrew's Church. Yet 2 days later, his open grave was found with scratches and broken fingernails on the inside, as if he had been buried alive. 2 days later, his wife, who had informed on him, saw his ghost in their upstairs room on Armstrong Road in Newcastle. She began screaming around 3 in the afternoon, and when neighbours burst in, she was sitting dead in a chair, her mouth open as if in mid-scream, her eyes wide open, and no sign of anything that could have killed her. Now she is said to have shown herself to those who have lived in that part of the West End. The dead were beginning to want to come back. In 1786, a yeoman, Henry Jennings, was hanged for horse stealing, also buried at St Andrews, and that night screaming was heard from his grave, so much so that a small crowd gathered and eventually started digging it up. And on opening it, the body kicked off the lid before falling backwards into the grave. When they checked on him, he was dead. 2 women fainted and 1 young man soiled himself in terror. Yet in 1877, a young girl aged 17, Maria Green, visited the town moor and felt an overwhelming urge to kill herself. She threw a rope across a tree branch and hanged herself. At the present moment, there is a car park on this precise spot. The note she left behind was chilling. So many innocent people died here. I beg the fates to free them from their graves so that they can return and do mischief to the families that cost them their lives. Let my life be a sacrifice to those living for eternity in darkness. 3 days later, Jeanette Alexander, the great-great-niece of the forger given to the police by his wife, was found dead in an upstairs room on Archbold Terrace in Newcastle. Within the next few months, there were a number of inexplicable deaths, all seemingly without motive, but all having one similarity. Edward Jennings, a 39-year-old labourer, was found locked safely into his home, staring at something that had scared him to death. Not a single wound on his body that could have killed him. Celia Bell was found with her skull crushed